Today, we are going to talk about my journey from meet most to greatly exceeds. That's a three-level jump in Facebook trading in 90 days. Um, I am a coach, career coach. I used to work at Facebook. I did my PhD at Cornell. And then before that, I also went to IIT Kanpur. I studied computer science and engineering there. So we'll talk about that story, and also we'll talk about some lessons we can draw from that, right? And again, we've been talking about before people joined. Feel free to write in the chat where you're from, and also what is one thing you would like to get from this talk, like having an intentionality, like I want to get this from this talk. I'm struggling with this issue. So write in the chat. So the plan for today is going to be, who am I? I'm going to just introduce myself a little bit about like my journey beyond the Facebook also. Then my story of meets most to greatly exceeds in 90 days. I'll talk about 4 pillars that I've learned over time and that I help the people I work with now. How do we apply these 4 pillars to improve your performance at especially a software job, but also other jobs in general? Number 1, observe the environment. We'll talk about that. Increase your luck surface area. Tell, do, tell. We'll go in a lot more detail. So, and then healthy sense of power in your job. And then I'll have a few words about the current job market and, what kind of problems people run into with people. So I'll have a few words about that. In the meantime, if you have any questions, I think we can make it interactive. I'll ask for questions at in between talks, also in between our conversation, but write them in the chat. And Jian, who works with me, he is gonna look at the questions and see if we can answer them toward the end also. This is gonna be about 30-35 minute talk, and then there'll be time for Q&A also. About myself. So I have had a long career journey throughout. I grew up in a small village in India. Then I went to actually computer scientist. I'm a computer scientist and mathematician. I went to IIT Kanpur. I happened to do well there with some hard work and some luck. I got the President Gold Medal there, which is the award for doing the best academically, basically out of the 400 people there, which was very surprising for me. But I'm glad that worked out. I also went to Cornell after that for my PhD. I did research in theoretical computer science and machine learning, theoretical side of machine learning, and got I think one best paper for that in a conference also. So that's kind of the computer science journey. Then I also have taught in college, university. I was a lecturer, visiting professor at Cornell, University of Waterloo. And then from there, I wanted to kind of dive into more real world problems of industry, not just academia. So I took a jump and make a shift to software engineering and research scientist at Facebook, now called Meta. I joined there maybe a year before their IPO. Was a really crazy time. When I joined, there were like 600 people. When I left, there were 15,000. So that's like 30x, 25x growth. It's a hyper growth period. Was fun, was challenging, did well, also did poorly at times, as you can see, meet most, and that's part of it. I also worked at Microsoft Research and a couple other places over my career. Now I'm a career coach. I help people basically avoid the trap that I fell in and in my career negotiation. I did a talk around negotiation, of course, and how do we improve performance, and how do we do well in our career and be satisfied and joyous and harmonious in our life as a whole. I worked with 400 people or so. You can check my LinkedIn profile there, linkedin.com's the Yogi 1. It's YOGI 1, numeral 1 is my profile. Feel free to connect with me. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me through LinkedIn. Happy to connect with that. Just when you connect with me, just say like, hey, joining from, how about you from Taro? I would love to connect. So I know where you're coming from. And over the years, I've done a lot of other things, and that has helped my career instead of detracting from it. And we'll talk about this today also. Sometimes we think, if we just do one thing, we'll do well. But sometimes just being broad helps in every part. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a regular meditator. I'm also mediator. That's not meditator, it's mediator. Well, I mediate between, fighting parties about how to mediate and come up with agreements. I'm a father of a 2-year-old, and I do outdoor teaching. I teach backpacking. I teach people going to Sierras. I also teach them urban bicycling and things like that. All right. I'm just looking at the questions also. And this is the story of my jumping 3 levels at Facebook, 3 levels of performance. No, not 3 levels of L1, L2, L3, L4, but 3 levels of performance Facebook. So this is the story of one half. It's about 6 months long. In the beginning of half, I had done, I was burnt a couple times already, and I knew I needed clarity on my goals for the half. I had 2 goals. I was good to go. The clarity, I felt good. Okay. From there, 1, 2, 3 months went in. I was doing well. One task was done. One project was done. It was writing a research paper, which now, by the way, is published as wormhole paper in systems community. It's published in NSDI. That paper was done, but not published, but submitted. And other task was on track. Other project was on track. I felt really good. Like, this is going to be a good half, right? And then I had a conversation, the conversation that changed everything. My manager told me, Yogi, you're not meeting expectations. And if you don't improve, I'll get affected in my career and I'll let you go. He actually said very directly. And that was a shock. I couldn't function after that. I couldn't speak. It was such a shock because I'd seen what below expectations look like because I'd been there, but this was not it. I knew that. That changed everything. From there, the first part I did was finding my ground. It took me a couple of weeks to find my ground. What does that mean? I was on visa status and, the fear came in, but I was able to find my ground through my inner work, through talking to people. And from there, I realized finding the ground was not enough. I got to it's a long conversation, long path ahead, conversing with people, influencing people, my skip. I had built relationships over time, and now was time to actually engage with them. And this is going to be a lot of work. It's not like I'm going to fight with my manager and get a better rating. It's not that simple, right? Skip level, peers, managers, many walks I did, many talks I did, and there's a long path ahead. And with that, it was also very tempting to fight that. And then I would have, if I had not kept my performance up, it would have made whatever manager said to be true. But I kept pedal on my metal and I kept doing the work that needed to be done. Because, as I talked here, can you guys see my mouse here or no?
Yeah, we can see it.
See the mouse? Yeah. So here, when I said one done, other on track, other was on track, but not done yet. If I just focus on fighting and not do the work, whatever manager said would become a reality. So I had to keep the pedal on the metal and while I was doing everything else now. Okay. And I realized through that, I didn't have a ceiling. I realized I just wanted, meets expectation at that time, maybe exceeds. But I said, no, I'm not going to say what I want now. No ceiling here. Let's see how far I can go. And that's a big learning. In negotiation, they talk about whoever speaks what they want first, they lose. Because it's just like, that's the ceiling. You won't get more than that. And I realized one of the first times here, no ceilings. I would have been happy with meets or maybe, meets exceeds expectation. What I ended up getting was greatly exceeds because there was no ceiling. And that was a huge learning. Okay. So, okay. And Josh says, yes, you can hear me. And I've done previous talks about, this journey I've mentioned, but I've not talked about this. If you have any question, by the way, feel free to drop in the chat about what questions you have, if it's making sense, maybe not making sense. Just, I would love to kind of interact and see if something is not making sense. I'm keeping an eye and I will actually repeat that. I've done previous talks on negotiation with Uber, with LinkedIn, a large negotiation, many more failures. It's not about just successes. It's behind the scenes, a lot of failures involved. And I went from 3 rejections to 3 offers after that Facebook gig I did in about 3 months, and many more rejections also along the way. So these are the couple talks. If you have not watched them, you don't attend them, I would highly encourage you to look at them also. It kind of gives you a bigger picture of what I did and what I do in coaching with people also. I help people with negotiation. I help people with job search. I also help people doing well in the current job. Okay. Rashmi says timely. Yeah, timely presentation. Good. It'll be coming up. So here are a couple mistakes I'm going to share what people typically make when they think about performance. And I would love for you at the end of the slide to say yes if you've made any of those mistakes. Okay. Doing great work is enough for good performance. That's a belief people have. And sometimes it takes months, sometimes longer, to just shake that belief off of people. Doing great work is enough for great performance. On the other hand, some people think politics is what you need to do well. Politics is what you need to perform. That was a big mistake. Short term, maybe. Long term, politics doesn't get you good performance in the long run. I've seen this over and over again. People get burned. Okay. If you have that belief, well, you're not alone. Another one, work is static. Like, well, whatever you need to do, somebody tells me at the beginning of year, I need to do this, I do that. People think, especially in software, it's not static. Things are moving all the time. It's a dynamic. So even the agreements you have with the manager, they change. Work changes. And a lot of people make this mistake is they do status updates in one-on-one. Their whole one-on-one with manager is about what they did, what project they're working on, and where the status is, how many Jira tickets they closed, blah, blah, blah. Right? Big mistake. So just shout out one, like yes or one in the chat if you have made any of those mistakes or have any of those beliefs. Yes. Wow. Okay. One, yes, yes. Yeah. If you don't, say no or 0 also. That's also okay. Yeah. Made several of those. And I've seen most people I work with have made one or many times multiple. And today, and many more throughout the talk, I'll share those mistakes. Now, this outline of the talk is to how do we avoid those mistakes. Okay. There are like 4 kind of pillars I'm going to share as we talked about. First thing is to keep calm and observe the environment. A lot of time we get kind of bogged down and just like, I got to do the work. Observe the environment, keep calm. It takes effort. It takes mindfulness. It takes a lot of restraint at times to keep calm and observe the environment. Second is we're going to talk about increasing your luck surface area. It's performance is a bit about luck, and performance a bit about, a bit about luck and a bit about how well you're doing, both of them. So how do we increase our luck surface area? This idea of luck surface area comes from a friend of mine, Utkarsh Amitabh. He's a master of this kind of work, and he talks about this, and I learned from him. Second thing is tell, do, tell. A lot of time people do. You also gotta tell what you are gonna do it, and then tell you did that. Right? This is a communication principle that many people follow, and I find that very helpful in performance also. Healthy sense of power is another one. We gotta have a healthy sense of power in our job to be able to perform well. If we are feeling needy, if we are feeling desperate, we won't be able to perform well because our state of mind is not good. Okay, so those are the four key areas. Actually, which one is your struggle, by the way? Just let's say, actually, we probably don't know yet what these are. So let me go into keep calm and observe the environment. Number 1. How do we keep calm? A lot of people get impatient about, I gotta improve my performance. So they were impatient. They don't speak for a long time, but once they speak what they want, they're very impatient about it. But realize things take time. It's not that simple, like I do this and then like in a week later, something will shift. No, it takes sometimes many weeks, multiple months. It just takes time. So be patient. Build relationships before you need them. I've seen people start to reach out on LinkedIn and start to meet with friends once they get laid off and like they can let go and they're needing a job now. That's, of course, relationships are helpful for that, but build relations before you need them. And I was able to leverage many of my relationships I built in Facebook when this manager gave me a bad rating. And those were my lifelines. If I didn't have those, I wouldn't be able to do this, what I did. And then learn to engage in conflicts. Okay. And we'll talk about each of them in depth now. Right? Things take time. People become impatient, but you need to compartmentalize and balance various balls that are, in the air. And one of the things I do as part of just reminding myself that, it's about, things take time and we need to compartmentalize is to, like I juggle, right? So this is like juggling. You need to keep 3 balls in the air. And without that, something will drop. And once something drops, that becomes a feedback and that bites you in the end. To compartmentalize and balance things, learning that. And I was able to do that, as I mentioned, toward the second half of that, the 3 months in that half, I kept my pedal kind of my effort on the project that was not finished yet while I was working on other stuff, convincing manager and other people and all that. And we want to understand the power dynamics. And we want to understand who is the influence person, who is this, who is that, understanding that, there's politics in the workplace. We want to understand that politics without playing politics for our selfish gain. But if you don't understand the power dynamic, and these things take time. There's no shortcut to these things. Yeah, somebody says like, many companies don't have equivalent of Meta. Meta was a good place that way. And one thing I realized talking to people I work with all kinds of people in software industry, people from all the world now. I think there are pockets where you can make that a reality. Of course, not every workplace is as good as Meta. Build relationships before you need them. Want to start helping people without specific expectation. And this comes from, I also kind of follow and read kind of older books, and like Gita is one of the books that talks about this a lot. Like if you have a lot of expectation and you help people, the law of karma eventually comes back around, but you don't know how long it will take, how long things come around, how long things will take to come around. But you want to start helping people without specific expectation. Make allies to create impact when you join a job. Also, your career is your kind of ownership, and you've got to managing the manager, which I did during that time, managing sideways about peers, those relationships, and managing down if you're a manager. And all that is part of building relationships. And a lot of people avoid conflict. That's a big mistake, right? But you're going to engage in conflicts. Be mindful. There are various kind of frameworks you can follow. Stop is one framework. Like stop is like stop something, observe and proceed, something like that. And we see nonviolent communication. These are some frameworks that I follow with people, teach them how do we engage in conflicts. Whenever there's a conflict, it's an opportunity. That's the way I see it. And learn to expect people's point of view, understand them, and establish common ground. A lot of the time we focus on differences, we focus on fights, but not on what the common ground is. Right? So this is how you observe the environment. Things take time, build relationships before you need them, and understand that engaging in conflicts is a way to improve performance over time. Right? If you have any of these, by the way, if you have any of these you kind of struggle with, say one or yes in the chat. And of course, I'll take 30 seconds. And if you want to engage in deeper conversation, by the way, with me at any point, of course, you can go to this URL and then schedule a meeting, and I'll figure out if this is a good fit and to have a conversation or not, right? We can, but at least have that. So it's tinyurl.com/meet Yogi, MEETYOGI. But that's like, you can do it throughout the talk, but say yes or one if you struggle with observing the environment. Understanding things take time. You don't build relationships, or you are afraid of engaging in conflicts. Just one person has this struggle, which is good. Well, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I don't know 1, 2, 3 means, but I guess you have all 3 maybe. Yeah. Awesome. Good. And you're not alone. This is a common thing. One thing I'll say, by the way, if you can, if you are able to, have your video on, that way you will learn a lot more. You'll like to be able to engage. I can see you. If you have an expression, then I can kind of, all that will be helpful, right? So if you can make your video on, turn it on. If you're driving, please don't do that then. Yeah. Or you're not in a place that you can do that. Second piece is increasing your luck surface area. Okay. Actually, somebody said, didn't understand the compartmentalization part. I'll get back to this. So GN just remind me later on. Increasing luck surface area. Luck surface area has three components, actually two components. One is do the impactful work. Without that, nothing in the long term will work. You got to do the work that's important. And you got to do the good job at that. But that's not enough. You got to talk to people about it. And you got to align with the big picture of the organization, or intermediate picture. I'll tell you what it means, in order for your work to be impactful. Let's talk about each of those. Do the impactful work. You want to understand the goals and expectation for your role. Many people just dive in and start doing stuff without understanding what the expectation is, what the goals are, and then they realize a year later, oh shit, like I'm not doing what needs to be done. My manager gave me feedback now. So you understand that goals and expectations right in the beginning and throughout your role, the time as your role. You want to have regular communication with your stakeholders. And when it comes to performance, that stakeholder is manager. You want to have, are the goals and expectations changing, shifting? Are they still the same or not? That's a regular communication is involved. And third piece is seek weekly feedback. And this is a really hard thing for people to implement. In my coaching, we do this a lot. Like somebody gets a feedback, oh, you need to improve your communication. What do I do in a week about that? But unless you do something in a week about that, it will not improve. Nothing happens in a year. Things happen today, tomorrow, the day after, which add up to a year. So working on the feedback on a daily and weekly basis is one of the kind of cornerstone of how we dissect our work with people. We gotta do the impactful work. Then talk to people about it. And who are these people? Well, first thing is people mistakenly believe that my manager should do it. I had this mistaken belief for the first couple of years of Facebook that my manager should communicate my work. Why should I? It's his job. Big mistake. It's not his job. It's my job to talk to people about it. You gotta learn audience-specific communication, right? What is audience-specific communication? I had a story at Facebook where I was working in, after that experience, I was working in a different hardware team. I was building the top of the rack switch at Facebook. And I realized that I was talking to VP and I was explaining what I do. I do the warm boot code and this and that. He's like, he didn't understand any of that. He's like, and he helped me see that at that level, what they're looking for is, in my work was, I helped Facebook save out $50 million over a year, right? That's what they were looking at. And that's the audience-specific communication. Without that, you can talk like it sounds Greek to people. Seek managers help in this, talking to people. Who are the people to talk to? Who are the people I can reach out to? And then storytelling about your work and its impact. So storytelling is a huge part. If you just say ABC, that's not impactful. If you tell a story, it's an arc. Something was difficult, and then you kind of felt confused, and this and that. You did something, it worked, but it didn't work for a while. And story has ups and downs, and learning to tell the stories is a big part of talking to people. Otherwise, it's just another thing they listen and they forget. Story they don't forget. And align with the intermediate picture. An intermediate picture is this: understand the interplay of your work with your skips org, not your manager's org, not the big company, but just high enough that you understand the context of your work, right? And visualize, communicate that impact project to this org. That's where the relationship building happens. Map people and influence. That was a big part of my work there. Like, how did I was able to map people and influence in like who is influence, who is the influential person should I talk to or build a relationship with? And you want to have extreme ownership of what you own. You get it done, even though other people are, you're depending on other people. but you are responsible for getting it delivered, though. Ownership and collaborate. And so that's the second piece. Increase luck surface area by doing impactful work, talk to many people, and then align with the intermediate picture, right? And again, this is the URL again, if you want to dive into these conversations and like, hey, I struggle with this and I would love to, get a couple pointers. How can I improve? And we can dive into your situation. But tell me here by writing one or yes to if you struggle with any of those, like, hey, I don't know, my work is impactful. I don't know if it is or it is not. I just do what my manager tells me. Talk to many people about it. Am I talking to people? So one means I struggle with this, 0 means I'm good, or 1 means I'm struggle, and no means I'm good here. 1, yeah. If you're good, oh yeah, 0, no, awesome. Awesome. Some people aligning with org picture. That's a big one because many people don't even have meetings with skip level. Right? And one of the work we do, it takes us a couple months to align there, but how do we start to have regular meetings with or skip so that we are in regular touch with them? Yeah, a bunch of ones, some zeros, which is good, in a good place. Awesome. Then again, the URL was tinyurl.com/meet Yogi. And then we go for a third one. Third one is tell, do, tell. It's kind of a philosophy of communication. We first tell what we're going to do, then we do it, and then tell what we did. And this is about clarity. The first thing is clarity on deliverables. What is your deliverable? And I think this one of the last one, also doing the impactful work, is part of that. But clarity on deliverable, some of the things will be repeated here because they fall into multiple buckets. Second thing is regular check-in with your manager. We'll talk more about this, and asynchronous communication. Many people don't do this. I had a really difficult time with asynchronous communication with Facebook for a couple of years, and that really hurt me. So clarity on deliverables is, deliverables, especially in software, are not like, they're not static. They're gonna change. Company priorities change, your org, and how many reorgs you've seen? How many people have seen a lot of reorgs, right? That's changing priorities. Now, it can be dynamic, but you want to have an agreement with your manager about what the deliverable is and how it shifts. And it's your job, because managers get distracted. They have managing 5, 10, 15, 20 people. They can't keep track of all that. And it's work for them. So make it easy for them by you have clarity. And one of the process I follow is proactive self-review, where we write our self-review way ahead in advance and then make that a reality. And that's a process that many people find very impactful, where we have clarity on what our self-review will look like in the future. Suraj says 2 reorg till now. And I don't know how long, how many years you've been in the company, but think like, yeah, a lot of reorgs. Now so regular check-in is a big kind of pillar that we want to lead our meetings, our one-on-one meetings. And most people have probably like, bi-weekly, weekly one-on-ones, and you want to actually have very regular one-on-one, maybe weekly one-on-one, most likely. So you want to lead the meeting. You are the owner of your career, and this one-on-one, many people believe it is for status update. It's not. It's actually for your career. And lead those meetings. You are the owner. Start with your career, end with your job. Most people start with the status updates, and then, well, status updates it's like a gas. It takes as much space and time as is given to it. So we start with career and then end with job. And I follow a process called exhaust the feedback, where we constantly seek feedback. On a weekly basis, we work on the feedback and deliver on the feedback on a weekly basis. Small steps, but weekly basis. And that really helps to have a regular check-in. Then your manager also wants to meet because you're showing progress. And another piece is, it's not quite clear. We think, oh, I need promotion, so my manager should know it. It's not clear what people need. So communicating with your manager what you need is a big part of getting good performance, because what you need is not clear to many people. And even if it's clear to them, they forget. They're busy. People are busy. And asynchronous communication for updates. You want to update your manager and other parties about what you're working on a very regular basis, on a daily basis, ideally, about asynchronously. And that saves precious one-on-one kind of time. It keeps the manager afloat. Give them more than what they are looking for. That's one of the principles. Give people more than what they're looking for. And then they will leave you alone. They'll actually help you. They won't bug you. They won't micromanage you. And you want to convince a manager that this is a good mode of communication, because it's going to be work for manager. It's not going to be easy, because it's easy. Like they come in half an hour, they sit back and relax and just, talk with you about updates. But this is difficult because it's asynchronous and they need to spend some time on that, and they need to do some career conversation in the one-on-one. So that's hard. So convincing them is part of us, is our job also. Okay. All right. So now we are up to do tell, clarity on deliverables, regular check-in, asynchronous communication. And again, if you wanna dive deeper into any of that, that's a meeting link, Meet Yogi, tiny URL, Meet Yogi. But tell me if any of them you struggle with, like you don't quite know what the deliverable is. You're not doing regular check-ins, and you're not talking about career in the regular check-in. You're not talking about your career every week with your manager. And you're doing status updates in the meetings. If it's you, say one. Yeah. Couple ones. That's pretty good. Only couple, 4. Yeah. Speak more. Yeah. If you say, I don't struggle with this, then say 0. Because I think we want to see also that there are people here who don't struggle with this stuff. This is good. Yeah. Many people, some zeros, which they're good at communicating. Awesome. So that's and we come to the final part, healthy sense of power. The healthy sense of power is, we are not here to bulldoze people over. We are not here to play power games, but you feeling enough inside is very helpful, where you can actually contribute more and do well and perform better. Just you feeling that you're okay. And having a healthy sense of power is useful for that. You want to spend. So a couple of points here are that number one, you want to spend time on your career, not just job. Most people just spend 40, 50, 60. When they work 70 hours, 80 hours a week, they spend that time on their job. So spend time on your career also. Keep the long-term view, and then focus on your inner strength. That's what really will help you go over all these bumps that happen in career. Spend time on your career. How do we do that? Well, if you don't do that, then job search happens to be a very stressful job search is a very stressful experience. Then it's always happens in crisis mode. I was let go, or I just really find my manager to be very difficult person to work with, and I'm upset, frustrated. Then you do the job search, then you become desperate. You don't have power at that point, right? You want to have a healthy sense of power by spending time on your career, developing skills, stay relevant. And typically this, by the way, Google used to do this, like 10 to 20% of their time you work on just broader things. And it can actually happen that this work can help the current job also. It's not the case you're just looking for a job outside and just to not help the current team and current manager. The point is to help them also, but you develop a sense of power through that. Follow curiosity, your interest, learn more. If let's say you're working in security, right? Learning deeper about security will help your job, but also make you have a sense of power, and you can find a job if need be. So it's both ways. And the idea here is to do what would survive your job, right? This job will come and go, but what will survive that? Your self-confidence, the kind of work you do, the relationships you make, those are how you spend time on your career. And as I mentioned, this benefits both sides. Keep the long-term view, avoid tunnel vision. A lot of time we just kind of, the current fire is all we focus on. And by having this time, we focus on the long-term view. Where do I want to go in 5 years? When I was negotiating at Uber, the CTO there told me this advice, like, you want your day-to-day to kind of direct where you want to go in 5 years. If it's not helping you, get out. Right? And that was very good advice. And small steps every week, if not every day. This is very hard for people. What do I do? Like I'm looking to make a career change. Like what do I do today and tomorrow? Like every day, or if not every day, at least every week, small steps you want to make. And focus on inner strength. See, inner state, the way you feel about you, about other people, our relationships, about your job, that inner state is your biggest ally or your biggest foe if it's not empowering state. And one of the ways to improve your state of mind is to be in integrity. When you say you do this, keep your promises, and if you don't do it, follow through, deal with that also. Don't disappear. So being in integrity, even when others are not. We say, well, this guy did this, so I'm going to do this. But you will hurt your inner state if you do follow other people's examples. You know what your values are, and then be in integrity with those values. Build strong habits. Like one of the habits that really helped me through like a lot of these job changes, sorry, not job changes at Facebook, was just having the habit to work on my, every day, 15, 20 minutes working on some of the career stuff. Very powerful habit, or even your mindfulness habit or exercising. All those things are helpful. They keep you grounded. And finally, don't do things that make you dislike yourself. If you do that, it just, nobody can help you. Then you just dislike yourself. And you're doing things to dislike yourself. Even if other people are doing it, nobody forces you to do it though. You choose to do it, and don't do things that make you dislike yourself. And that's the healthy sense of power. Again, if you struggle with any of that, write a 1 or yes in chat. If you want to explore more and talk about this in a deeper conversation, you can schedule a meeting at tiny URL, meet Yogi, that link. And just I'll wait for a few zeros or ones. 1 is something that I struggle with. I don't feel powerful internally in my job. I don't spend time on career, or I don't have a long-term view on a regular basis, at least a weekly basis. I don't come back to this. And inner strength, I don't really, I don't have strong habits. Yeah. Many people have 1, 2, 1. Cool. Awesome. And that's gonna be kind of almost the wrap for us. And here are some hurdles that I've seen recently. Market is bad. We know that. And last 1.5 years has been bad. But also remember, it's not that bad. As if you're committed, if you're willing to take actually rejections on a stride, which takes some effort to change the mindset around rejections, it's not that bad. I have a client from Meta who, like mid last year, got a job change from Meta to another company, a smaller company, and like I think 1 level up, 100K raise is possible. Another guy who we had to do job changes in this, like from Google to another place and to Nvidia and that kind of stuff, and then like a 250,000 raise in this process. But again, he went through 18 rejections. That's a lot of rejections to handle. And a lot of our effort and work we did was about how do we handle rejections, because they hurt. They hurt. And working through rejections. Another issues we see, another hurdle people see, that people and managers just not understanding. They're incompetent. They just don't get me, right? And that's one guy I was working with a couple of years ago, and I'm still working on now, but a couple of years ago, he had this, he was a product manager, and the engineering manager just didn't get him. He was just like, he thought product managers are, just waste of time. They don't do anything. And sometimes engineers start to have that belief. And we worked for about 3 months and we had a very productive interaction and built a very strong relationship after 3 months with that engineering manager. And people can be understanding. It just takes time. If they hit you and you hit back, then relationships are not built, they're destroyed. People hit because they're, whatever their beliefs are, but we are different. And we build relationships, and that people can be understanding that way, right? So get out of your mind, seek help. I think Taro is a great community. So seek help in Taro. If I can help in any way, reach out to me, schedule a meeting here, and tinyurl.com, meet Yogi. And I think I'll open up for questions now. You can keep support with me. If I could actually do one takeaway from this meeting will be performance equals quality of your work plus the perception of your work. That's what performance is about. And I think if you just remember one equation here, just remember this, and it'll be good. And of course, you can't control perception. You can influence it. And that's a lot of what we did was how do we improve the quality of our work, which is impactful. And then how do we improve the perception of our work, which is, we can't control it, but we can definitely influence it. All right. Awesome. This is, and I'll open for questions. If you have questions, just raise your hand, virtual hand, or you can write question like a Q or question in the chat. Also, I would love to hear how you like the talk, if it was helpful or not. Just if helpful, say helpful. If needs improvement, say needs improvement, or both. I mean, yeah, helpful, beautiful. What questions I can answer? I think Jian, there was a question. Can you remind us the question?
Yes. Hey, Yogi. First question is the one from earlier, asking about essentially asking for clarification regarding compartmentalization during the first pillar.
So compartmentalization, let's focus on that. Compartmentalization is about that you need to do good work. You have family, right? So spending time with them, have a good relationship with them. You also need to build a relationship at work. So, having coffee with people, understanding them and having meetings with them and all that. Those are three things, for example. If you say, well, I got to do one, then that's just one ball, right? But we got to do all three. And that's a juggling of different things. How do we compartmentalize? Like, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get back to something else and then something else. It's still deep work. I'm working deeply for those couple hours, or you can compartmentalize, hey, Wednesday afternoon, I do this, or Friday morning, we do this. So you can compartmentalize time that way. Make sense? And of course, feel free to say if you need more clarification. Jane, what's next? And by the way, if other folks have other questions, of course, raise the hand, virtual hand. I think on the bottom you will see reactions and raise hand button, or you can just unmute and speak up if there are no questions right now. Gian, what's the next question?
Next question is more on elaboration about increasing the Lux surface area.
Elaboration on Lux surface area?
Yeah.
So if anybody who asked the question, if you can speak up, that'll be better. We'll get back to this, but I think we already have a question from Megan. Meghna. Hi, Meghna.
Hi, Yogi. The talk was really good and concise. Thank you. My question was how to manage perception with senior engineers on the team. Like in one-on-ones or in meetings with them, they end up telling me that I'm doing all right. But in meetings with my manager, I hear a different story. So the fact that they really don't think I'm doing all right, but like building that deep bond with them that they feel comfortable giving me that feedback instead.
Yeah, I think building bond is one thing. I think you're right about building bond where people can share feedback with you. I don't know you, but I think a lot of times what I see is what I've seen in myself. The way I ask the question leads to people either opening up or not opening up sometimes. And when they sometimes, people just will tell you a little bit of feedback, and the way you respond to that will affect if they tell you the feedback next time or not. Because people, even senior engineers, powerful people, they all have insecurities inside of them. They also want to be liked. They don't want to, everybody has those insecurities. And they don't want to, do things that are just hard for them. So make them easy for them to give feedback. I do this in coaching. Like when I ask for feedback from people, it takes a while to get feedback because people have not given feedback. Good feedback is hard. It's a lot of work to give good feedback. Right? And it just I have to keep showing up again and again. And sometimes you gotta develop bond, develop trust, and then I think sometimes they give a little bit feedback, we latch onto that. Tell me more about that. do this, and all that. And of course, feel free to, of course, if you have more specific questions, if you reach out to me, I can maybe hop on a call also. Right? Yeah, thank you, Meghna. Josh.
Yeah, thanks. So I was curious how it seems like your 90-day transformation was really like a daily endeavor. So, and you mentioned having like a weekly one-on-one with a manager, but maybe like you were having meetings like every day with people, right? So, what is an example of how you were really exhausting feedback in your pillars, and like what is an example of how you're able to improve on that immediately?
So one thing, one example from one of my clients I was working with, he got a feedback that your communication needs to improve. Okay, I think many people have gotten this feedback. Your communication needs to improve. It's completely useless feedback, right? Like, how? We work on, like, okay, what do I need to do in the next 1 or 2 weeks to improve the communication? Even the question I ask, so okay, so what do I need to do? That will block people off from telling you. Another way to say it is like, oh, interesting. I think I do agree with that. And I would love to hear like what one of the things I can do right now. It's very inviting versus not inviting. And then what we figured out was there was a meeting coming up in like 1.5 weeks with, he was giving a large presentation and like, hey, you have too much text on the slide. And you can reduce the text. The communication improved a little bit. Right? Now it's still not perfect, but we made a change in a week, in 2 weeks. And then, well, then there'll be next feedback. Communication is still not good. What next? And you can do things in a week, 2 weeks to make tiny improvements. That's the example. Does it make sense, Josh?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other question? I think Rahul asked a question. How do you suggest we track our progress with manager for the promo? Oh, good. So what in my coaching, I do this is we keep basically a Google Doc or some sort of a shared doc with somebody, and every meeting kind of has, like highlights and take home kind of some things that some things you are learning, what needs to be worked on, and insights you got, all those things we kind of track. And on the top, we also have like the goals we are working towards in the half or and all that. And then basically you want to collect data. You want to have an evidence-based conversation. Like, hey, this, I was at a 3 out of 10 in communication. Now you're 4. Oh, okay, some improvement. How can I get to 5? Right? Otherwise, you keep fighting. Oh, is it a 3 or a 2 or 7? We keep fighting. But how can I improve? And that can happen by keeping kind of really stats around this. And this logging takes, to me, it takes about like 5 minutes every week to do such a logging and keep the manager in the loop. And again, go in this with the sense of I want to improve, not I want to keep a paper trail to cover my behind, basically. That's not the goal here. The goal is to really be on the same page. Yeah. Any other question? GN?
Yes, I think we can flash the matrix first because someone asked to show the matrix again, so we can do that while answering the questions.
Show the matrix?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's do that.
And then the next question is from Rashmi. So
Yeah.
can you please tell us typically how long do clients work with you to see these changes?
Yeah. So typically I would say these things take time, right? But in a month or two, you are seeing shifts. You're seeing empowering perspective. You're seeing some changes. You're seeing some results. Not the final result, but some results, right? And then I typically work for a few months to land them in a place. So in a couple of months, you should see some good shifts. You see some like a manager's behavior changing, and like you're doing something, or like you're starting to get basically interviews and things like that, whatever we're working on. Does that answer your question? I think Rashmi probably does. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand. If not, we'll be.
We have 2 more questions in the chat, Yogi. So
Mhm.
next is from Yash.
Mhm.
Any advice on getting a return offer in software internships?
Or return offer on software internship. I think pretty much everything we talked about here, right? Is it, high performance will lead you to return offer. I think it's good in the beginning. I've had a couple interns. It's good to have in the beginning, have that clarity. So for example, let me see if I can hover my mouse over this. This part about clarity on deliverables, like what my goal is to get return offer. Actually talk about this in a very upfront. That's my goal. Some people think, oh, I don't want to talk about this because what they think I'm desperate, whatever. Like actually have that goal and then talk to the manager or whoever is managing you in the internship. Like, what do I need to deliver in order to get the return offer? And they will say, well, it's subjective, this and this. Yeah, it's subjective, yes. Now, given subjective, let's talk a little bit and keep talking every week. In internship, I would say even more often than a week because you end up talking a lot more with your manager. So clarity, basically, what you need to deliver. People talk about written offer at the end of the internship, not at the beginning. So it's a little bit also like the proactive self-review we talked about. You do the self-review before you start, your half. Any other question?
We have one final question. Any advice on how to be positive amid lots of rejections and still aiming high?
Yeah, that's a really hard one because rejections are, evolutionarily a very hard thing to handle because rejection typically meant death. If you go 50,000 years ago in our, in our human history, and evolutionarily we just haven't rejection still hurt, although rejections are not means life and death anymore, but we make it mean that way. Our at least limbic brain makes it mean that way. So one of the advice, I guess, this is such a broad question. I would highly encourage you to I am happy to talk more. Mindfulness is one thing I would say. Like that's the biggest thing comes to mind. When you have rejection, something comes up in your body, and we tend to avoid that. Whatever sensations you feel them, and be mindful of that. And as you become aware of them, they tend to change. And be a witness to that. Now, again, this is a very high level. I've done mindfulness for 20 years, and there's a lot of experience I have with that. But that's one thing I'll say, and we can come up with some small habits and practices for you if you reach out to me. Michael?
Hi, yeah. I asked this question in the chat as well, but I'll sort of summarize it here, right? So you presented a lot of things to do, right? To be mindful of, to be aware of, but this all comes at a cost, right? Like there's a lot to do simultaneously. So certainly, and I'll relate this personally, right? I spent 4 years at Facebook, and one of the things that I found difficult as well is finding the balance between doing all the technical work that's required, hitting milestones, doing delivery, et cetera, coordinating with your peers, all the XFN work you have to do, dealing with reorgs every half, a new manager every half. But then on top of that, right, then you also have to be a shameless self-promoter, as it were, right? So how does one strike the balance between all of these things? Because they all require a lot of energy and a lot of context switching.
Okay. So I thought, of course, I can't, so much I can speak, but the language you're using, by the way, it at least tells me a little bit insight into what you're saying, right? If you think something is shameless self-promotion, it will take a lot of energy for you to do it.
Well,
And I
I'm
think
sort of using a turn of phrase, right? But basically promotion, self-promotion, boasting, as it were, whatever, right?
even
Whatever.
the word boasting, right? Boasting has a negative connotation. Right? I think the seeing the point, like this is something is good for me, for them, for everybody. And I think once you align with this is energetically a good thing to do. And that, by the way, sometimes take a while to have that shift. And then things become less effortful. Effort is not just how much time you're spending. Effort is on the mind. Like psychological effort. We put a lot of psychological effort into things. Although something can be very simple. I remember I needed to reach out to somebody. It took me like 3 months of contemplating to reach out. When I reached out, it was a 2-sentence message. It took a lot of effort, but it didn't have to, because psychologically I was just like in turmoil. So that's the one thing I can kind of just from like 30 seconds of you speaking, I can say. But over time, I think practice helps. Over time, if you do it over and over again, you can do things more effectively. But yeah, I hope that helps. Anything else? I think we are just 1 minute out to the end of the time. Again,
We have Yogi, sorry.
Yeah.
We have a question from Shweta. The 90-day endeavor or transformation to greatly exceeds at Meta for you. Did it need time outside daily work hours? And also, was support from family needed?
Okay, so 2 things. Time outside work. I mean, when I was looking at Facebook, I didn't have work-life balance. So I mean, in a way, that was kind of one thing I didn't have very much. But I don't think it didn't need any more effort than I was putting before that. It was just a restructuring of things. So that's the one thing I would say. Some days I needed to work longer because this person who is a senior director was not available. So those things happen, like scheduling wise, but overall time, I don't think it's shifted much. It did take a lot of effort from the a lot of support from family though, because as we talked with Michael, when I was not in such a good state of mind at the time. I talk about I was grounded. Of course I became grounded, but there's still agitation going on, and that makes things hard. And I bring that emotional gunk to my family, and that support was helpful. My girlfriend at the time was super supportive and helpful. So without family support, it's really hard to do. And many times in our career coaching, we work on that part. How do we work it out with our family also? It's not just career, like just you're alone. You are not an island. You are, you're connected to other people. And how do we improve those relationships also so that you can spend time? Awesome.